But even Dr. King's assassination did not have the worldwide impact that George Floyd's death did.
I think 2020 could be best described as a Joe Biden speech. Confusing, perplexing, and just when you think you can't get any stranger, yet it does. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Okradowski of WeAreChange.org. A lot to get into in this video. Hopefully, I will be able to jam-pack all of it into this video, as of course we have more important developments when it comes to race relations and the larger civil conflict brewing in the United States that will, of course, reach its climax this select election coming up in November. We have a very important update from Australia as well. And if we have time, we'll get into some mass surveillance and, financial calamity news. But before we do that, plus a lot more, I am very excited to announce that we are now doing phase 2 of our Apocalypse Survival Self-Defense Training course. We did phase 1 just a few days ago. Everyone who came was very happy about what we did. Some of the reviews are in. You could read them right now on the website by clicking the link down below. And yet again, we're doing a more advanced course this time, which by the way, you could pay with cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, or with your credit cards. And if you are near Concord, New Hampshire, on Sunday, the 13th, noon, we're going to be doing a lot of advanced training moves, including CQB, close quarters battle. All of this training along with me, plus a lot more with my Special Forces Green Beret friend that will be joining us and teaching us some important skill set. Participation is limited to a few people to make sure you get the one-on-one attention and training. We also most likely will have accommodations available if people want to stay overnight. Learn more by clicking the link in the description and comment section below, and I hope to see you there this next upcoming Sunday. Now, this year we saw a large number of very prominent, famous people, whether in Hollywood, whether in politics, whether representing multinational corporations or the mainstream media, all push a racial agenda that was supposed to somehow help this nation, and it has done the complete opposite of that, as of course, according to a new Gallup poll, Americans believe that race relations are at an all-time low, as people's perceptions of black and white relations fall to a 19-year low, with many people, of course, expecting them not to improve. And of course they won't. Because, if you've been watching this YouTube channel, there's a larger divide and conquer agenda out there meant to pin people against each other so they don't truly deal with the true source of their problems. Sorry if I'm over some people's heads here, but that's exactly what's going on here. The multinational corporations, the bankers, the elites profit off of human suffering, especially when you're fighting each other over your DNA, rather than the true consequences of reality that actually do affect you. And we have to understand this problem with race relations usually comes up and is highlighted every 4 years by the mainstream media, made even more hyperbolic, with constant fear-mongering and trauma-based mind control showing traumatic events unfolding again and again, over and over again, destabilizing you and, of course, also the society that you live in. Now, in previous videos on this channel, we highlighted the circumstances, situations, and individuals that are adding fuel to this fire that is leading us down the road to a very, very unsafe place, especially for this year's election. To save time, we're not going to mention all of those particular circumstances, but be made aware that the underlying circumstances have not been dealt with. Therefore, this will only continue to get worse from here, since again more gas is being added to this fire. And the Washington Post today epitomized this with their piece that says, quote, "Perspective, the election will likely spark violence and a constitutional crisis in every scenario except a Biden landslide. Our simulation ended catastrophically." And of course this sounds more of a threat than anything else, but there is some important perspective to really consider here, especially where this country is going towards. I mean, the battle lines are being drawn, people are picking sides, people are moving to those particular sides, and we have mainline institutions and politicians literally trying to normalize violence against random innocent individuals. Safe to say that things will only definitely get worse from now, as even the book that promotes looting is requesting that people don't loot their book. Yes, that literally did happen. Another important area to highlight here is just some of the hyperbolic language used by some politicians that do deserve some important context, as we have New York Governor Andrew Cuomo recently coming out in a veiled threat to U.S. President Donald Trump, saying that, quote, Donald Trump better have an army. If he comes to New York, he can't have enough bodyguards. And that's coming from Andrew Cuomo, a hardcore killer who sent a bunch of grannies to nursing homes during, of course, a major pandemic, which skyrocketed the death rate in New York State. But this statement from Andrew Cuomo is, of course, coming after U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the federal government to look into defunding what he calls, quote, lawless cities, which would include New York, Portland, and Seattle, which would effectively cut off those cities from federal funding. And we have to remember that majority of these cities were also the ones that refused any assistance from the federal government when it came to stopping looters and rioters in their cities. And after denying assistance from Donald Trump looks like he is taking the situation into his own hands by now effectively putting in steps to cut off these cities from federal funding. And personally, someone who believes in limited government, how about we just stop federally funding any city? I mean, why do they need to suck off the teeth of the taxpayer? Jurisdictions should be able to take care of themselves and not be dependent on a big central federal government. The government in exchange here should actually lower taxes, and I think this would be a win-win for everyone. But hey, at least I could have my own dream. But again, we have to highlight here the rhetoric between politicians is getting more and more heated. There already have been high levels of violence between left-wing and right-wing protesters to make the situation worse, and politicians that, of course, are taking clear sides on this larger civil conflict that has already seen massive loss of life. Over 30 people have already died from the rioting and looting and so-called peaceful protests, according to CNN, that have been happening across this country this year. Joe and Joe Biden are now going to be visiting Jacob Blake, an individual who, by the way, abused a woman in unspeakable ways and was shot after an incident where he was going to her house again when specifically told not to. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has taken the side of Kyle Rittenhouse, who also is videotaped assaulting a girl weeks prior to the incident that, of course, just unfolded a few days ago. Now, not taking sides here, and of course, wherever you stand politically, you will believe one side over the other, as of course the big social tech media algorithms usually put you in an echo chamber meant to reinforce and harden your ideas. That's another important factor to really consider here. And another one on top of that is also the censorship that has been happening on one particular side, while of course the other is promoted. Specifically here with the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, who I believe there should be an honest conversation about, especially when it comes to the topic of self-defense, but that is prevented on Facebook, that of course is blocking any posts from having an honest discussion about this particular topic, which of course is unfair and deserves to be called out, since of course the big tech monopolies clearly have an invested interest and have picked a side during this larger civil conflict that is unfolding here, and they are creating a situation that is unfair. Now again, for months we've been telling you there's going to be a major civil conflict happening in the United States that's going to crescendo during the election. We've seen Washington Post say similar things right now, and we're also seeing the same kind of epithets by Facebook that is deciding to take a more aggressive approach in their censorship efforts, by the way, that have been mainly targeting the right, as now Facebook has announced that they will be banning all political ads and, quote, removing misleading headlines around voting, especially during election night, to, quote, fight misinformation. But again, when we clearly have a biased big tech monopoly, their word can't really be trusted here, and we should be very skeptical to what we are seeing in our algorithms that are curated for us. More editorializing, more restrictions by a side that clearly has an invested interest is not something good. It's something that we should, of course, worry about and strongly consider adapting to when it comes to everything that's happening here. As Facebook even announced that it may soon even become more restrictive in places like Australia, where it is considering banning its users from sharing news on its platform. And with the way that Australia has been abusing its citizens with its authoritative, tyrannical Big Brother government, of course, they would work in partnership with Facebook in squashing any political conversation that, of course, the government does not see fit, as Australia is literally becoming the new draconian Chinese Big Brother Orwellian state, as we documented yesterday in a case where a pregnant woman was arrested and is facing a $20,000 fine for making a Facebook post over a protest. Australia has really seen the worst of the worst when it comes to excessive, abusive governments, as citizens are literally treated worse than prisoners in some countries, as the government has literally released restrictions where people are only allowed out for 1 hour a day. Only one person a day is allowed to shop in your household, and you can't even leave 5 kilometers away from your home while you're under martial law lockdown under a curfew between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. And the Australian government is able to do this since, of course, they confiscated a large number of firearms from individuals. And right now, obese dorks who are bullies are rolling around in pure joy around the abuse of power that they have granted themselves, oinking in pleasure as more and more citizens are left in despair and pain from their actions.
If, however, you do take the selfish option and leave home to protest, we'll be ready for you. So while I won't go into the details of our tactics and our plans on the day, be assured we'll be ready for you. And we'll be ready for you not only in the city, but we'll be ready for you when you leave home. And hop on public transport or use other means to come into the city. We will be ready to meet you where you go mobile, and our aim is to prevent you from coming into the city. So we're not standing by and waiting for people to come into the city. We'll be out there in the suburbs. We'll be on the roads and the public transport system to make sure everyone is complying with the restrictions. So if you find yourself on public transport on Saturday, coming into the city, you can expect that police will want to speak to you. Police will want you to explain which of the permitted reasons you have for leaving home. And of course, if you're leaving home or you've left home in order to protest, if you're outside your 5 kilometre bubble, you'll be held in breach and you will be fined. And if you persist in your behaviour and you don't comply, you will be arrested in the interests of keeping everyone safe.
Yes, we will abuse you, rob you, kidnap you, put you in a cage where you're not social distancing, all for your safety. Yes, sure. You little bootleg Officer Wiggum? Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, how more draconian, how more insane, how more tyrannical could you get? And we have to understand, this is not just in Australia. This is coming to the United States very soon, as this is only the beginning here. When governments get a little bit of power, you give them a pinky, they will take your whole hand, they will take your whole existence from you. Just like history dictates to us, they always do. Disgusting, sick activities all over a sickness, by the way, that we can't even properly test for, that still has major anomalies that don't make any sense at all, showing clearly with the case of whether you're looking at Japan, Sweden, South Africa, that everything that has been done in the name of stopping this has actually not worked, but created more human suffering than the sickness actually could deal. The levels of depression, suicide, substance abuse, spousal abuse, poverty-related crime has skyrocketed over mega-rich plutocratic pigs that tell you you need to wear a mask, you need to social distance, you need to not even go inside and patronize businesses as they do it themselves. Like, of course, we had Nancy Pelosi. And because of politicians like Nancy Pelosi, Bill de Blasio, Andrew Cuomo, and so many other bigoted, psychotic, sick, twisted individuals is why what's happening in Australia could soon happen in the United States. By the way, Nancy Pelosi, who was caught in this scandal, is literally blaming a single mother and her failing business, a failing business that is failing because of her policies, as a result to why she was caught not wearing a mask and being inside of salon, breaking the rules that, of course, she is enforcing herself. The single mother, by the way, who's receiving threats, has started her GoFundMe to move her business outside of the draconian police state district of San Francisco, and she has already raised nearly $65,000 for herself. So at least there's still some independent entrepreneurial actions to combat the insane actions of the state. At least we could try to end it on a good note here. Not all is lost, not all is doomed. If it was, they wouldn't need the propaganda to enforce their insanity on all of us. Don't believe them. Support independent media. It is more important than ever. Without your financial support, without you clicking that share button, clicking the URL of this video and sending it or publishing it or posting it, I would not be here. And just that simple action keeps me here. And this is why. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org. And hey, come learn some survival training drills the next coming up Sunday with me, one-on-one, near Concord, New Hampshire. I hope to see you there. Stay tuned for more.